Laura Bear, your best friend realtor, here again. I've wanted to do something fun today and talk about my scariest moments and my worst moments as a realtor. I feel like so many people either love this job or wonder about this job or maybe glamorize this job. And so I thought I'd bring a little fun and a little bit of reality to my experience and what it's like being an agent. When I was being trained and getting my license, and since then, people warn about dangers and safeties. It seems like every year there's a realtor who loses their life or something bad happens. Like we're meeting strangers we don't know. We're walking into empty houses. And so there is a true danger in being an agent. And I think even more so being a female agent. And so I knew this. And especially when you're a brand new agent, you've been told about it more. And so it's like a little bit heavier on your mind. There was this listing I'd taken and it was vacant. It was out in the country, except there was a house next door. There was a really wide driveway that connected to their driveway. And so my car was parked, the house is empty. I had gone and unlocked the house. I was installing the lockbox. I only had on me, back then we had MLS lockboxes with like a electronic key. So I had my electronic key and I had my key to my office, which was like a big key. And my purse was in my car, my keys were in my car, everything else, the sign, I had camera, I had everything ready to get the listing going. And so I'm standing in front of a vacant house and there's this big wide driveway and this old van pulls into the driveway, except they didn't park just anywhere in the driveway. They pulled up, just like tail-ended my car and parked. And out gets out two guys. One's black, one's white, which like in that area, that just like in certain areas of town, right? Like I'm in a melting pot now. That's normal. In a different area of town, that would be normal. But like in this area, it just seemed odd. And they were dressed extremely casual. It's like the middle of the day. It's probably like 10:30 in the morning. And I was scared. And all these stories that you've been told came to mind. And I'm like, what am I going to do? This the first thing I'm thinking is they can just throw me in this house and take advantage. And so I I only have one thing in my hand. So I hold my key, like it was kind of the big key. And so I hold it and I was thinking, well, I could just stab them in the neck. So I put it in my hand, like, as much as a weapon that I could, and I'm thinking, if they attack me or I'm just gonna wait a moment, I mean, I'll fight them back, I'll, kick them, whatever, but I'm just gonna stab them in the neck with the key, and, I'm laughing because of what it turned out. It turned out they were trying to proselytize a religion. I think they were Jehovah's Witnesses, I don't really remember, but they both came up and normally, like, if that was the case, they would be dressed better than they were. They were dressed so like a bum, I just have to say, like, extremely casually in the middle of the day. And so, luckily, my safety wasn't in danger and I was able to handle the situation. But that was one of my top scary moments. Another couple of scary moments. This next one wasn't as scary. It was just like it could be really scary. Where I started selling real estate in Mississippi in Tupelo, it actually wasn't my hometown. So my hometown's Cleveland. It's like 2.5, 3 hours from Tupelo. And so I didn't know all the small towns surrounding and how close or far they might be. And so I took this listing that was like a little bit further, like once I was further in my career, I didn't go to this town anymore. Like I would drive through it at times to go to Memphis, but like it was just too far out to make sense for me to try to sell in that area because of drive time. And so I took this listing and it was like way out in the country and it was this winding little road to get to the house. And the house was cut out in this opening and just the surrounding of it. There was no cell phone service. And back then, when I first started, we used a GPS in the car. So I had a Garmin And I had no cell phone service, so it was like it just looked like the perfect, like, horror movie scene of you could just dispose of someone and there's no cell phone service, there's no trace, like, there's no way for anybody to ever know. I did wind up listing and selling the house, though, and some people want to be that far removed from everything, and so it wasn't too far from, like, town or from a grocery store, that kinda thing, but it was very remote, especially my drive. The other scary thing that happened was and something similar to this happened a lot, but this was like, um, I felt the most threatened by it this time. There was a house that was for sale by owner, and if I was driving by and I had time to stop, I would always stop, introduce myself, see if there's anything I could do to help them. And that's the case. And so I stopped. I shut my door. I had like a flyer with me with my information on it that I would just carry around in my car at that time. And so I shut the door, had the just one piece of paper in my hand, and this dog came out, which was a lab. And so I just didn't feel threatened by the fact that it was a lab. And the wind blew and it like rattled my paper. And then the dog like started growling at me. And I just felt frozen because he was really growling and barking at me horribly. And like, I've already shut my door. I don't want to move because I felt like he was about to attack me. So I was just like standing there frozen. And luckily, the homeowner was home and he came out of the house and like calmed his dog down and said something happened. And if he hears like rattling papers, he goes on like alert like that. So there were tons of times where I was showing in the country or like a similar thing, like I wanted to stop by a house and there's a dog. There were so many times where I was showing and like it wasn't my listing, right? And so I'm calling the other agent, like, hey, are these dogs okay? Because they're out and I'm scared to get out of my car. There was one time where I was showing a lady and a dog came running at us, like one of the neighbor's dogs. They were coming outside and their dog, like, it looked like their dog kind of escaped, not meaning to. And it came running towards us and she got behind me. Like, and I did, I was younger than her. So I felt like that, need to protect. And I was working out a lot at the time. So I felt like strong, but still, like, I'm still scared of strangers' dogs. I like dogs, but I don't know their temperament or anything, like I don't want to be bitten. So again, so many people think being in real estate is glamorous, and maybe for some it is, but for us, like we try to go above and beyond for people. And so there's been a couple times where there's been an issue where somebody's totally got stopped up and they didn't have a plunger at the house and like we had showing scheduled. So our team ran and bought a plunger and like took care of the situation. I know there's like a high-end realtor that talks about bringing like a dust buster with her and like cleaning the house. There's been so many times where I've cleaned people's houses or I'm putting stuff away for photography and all of that. So, I don't think helping clean up after others doesn't feel like super glamorous. So, okay, one of the most stressful things I feel like that happened was we had a situation where it was like 4 houses closing back to back. There were like people moving from Alaska to Texas, and then there were 2 sales happening in Texas, and one of those people were moving to Mississippi. And so we were like waiting on like this domino effect of like 4 people to close on this house. Now it was my listing. The other agent and I did a lot of business together, so we were like very familiar with each other, and the buyers, I think they were like they were living in a hotel. So the buyers of this property had come, they were staying in a hotel and waiting to sell their house back in Texas and close. And they had already brought like their truck trailer full of stuff. And so my sellers had gone ahead and moved out of the house they were selling. And our closing got delayed because of like the delays of all of these other houses that are supposed to close back to back. And they asked, can we just go ahead and have access to the garage and store some stuff in it? And so the seller said yes. And he's like, just tell them not to move in. That's exactly what they did. And so I think it was like more than a week. that they just moved in without permission and we are just sweating. What are we going to do if this situation doesn't close? Because that happens too, right? And so that was probably one of the more stressful things that happened. I had a similar situation on the other hand. So I had buyers that were buying a house and the sellers, they were wanting to do a lot of work. And I think like wherever they were moving out of, like they were wanting to do work before we close. And then I think we're supposed to close on a Friday, but then like something got delayed and the attorney's office didn't stay open long enough. They'd close at 12 or something. And so we couldn't close on Friday and we got delayed till Monday. So they had planned all along, like, we're going to be moving in this weekend. We're going to be painting. We're going to be doing stuff. And so, they asked for another walkthrough that day, which I was going out of town to do something with family. It was a Saturday morning. They're like, "Can we go back and walk through it?" And, I got a colleague to go over there and meet them for me, except the keys weren't in the lockbox, and we're making calls, and the keys are at the attorney's office. And so and they asked, "Can we go ahead and start painting?" And the sellers are like, "No, it's not your house yet," even though like everything was done. It was just a matter of signing papers. Like money had been wired, everything was good to go. I'm not saying they were wrong. I can understand not wanting people to start doing things like who wants a half painted wall? And even if it is a good color, like what if you had to deal with that again? And so I'm not sure the buyers were like friends with an attorney. So I don't know if the keys were really at an attorney's office and they were able to get the key or if they just went over to the house and like checked some windows. But they broke in and started painting. These sellers are out of town, but they have like a teenage daughter who comes home that evening and they've done like almost a whole Saturday of painting. At some point in the morning, they broke in and like I got a call, I think it was like 5:30 Saturday evening, and I'm just now coming back into town. Um, and the agent is furious. So she tells me what they did, and like I've had enough time of like showing them houses and getting to know them that like I can just see that they're not the kind of people like ask for forgiveness, not permission, right? Like they just obviously had that attitude. I'm still laughing about it, right? Like I wouldn't do it. I would not personally do this. And I don't think it's right, but I can still find it funny that somebody would be this audacious to break into a house and start painting, even though they told you you can't do that. Like, obviously, it's Saturday. We still have Sunday and Monday morning to go. I'm sure they went in there knowing the sellers are going to find out about this. Like, what did they think? I don't know what they were thinking, or they just didn't care. They're like, "This is what we want. We want to do it as quick as possible. This is our weekend to do it, and we are going to do it, and we don't care, what they say or what they think." So that happened. So revisiting the fact that every year or every few years, bad things happen to realtors, I have gotten more and more careful. I think even though I had like that idea when I first got into real estate and I was a little bit paranoid, I was also like not as careful because I'm just trying to work my way up and make money. And over the years, like I feel like maybe it's maturity or maybe it's just like my life matters and I'm a mom of three. So I need to be careful and I need to be smarter about things. But one of the, I guess, stupidest things I've done or more brazen things I did. We had a neighbor who I had talked to him once, but then I couldn't get him back on the phone. So there is this house that on one side it did connect to a road. So like the appraisal didn't catch it, but the driveway for it was like 20, 25 years was actually an easement. So legally they would have the right to keep the easement. However, to go through the legal process of when it's missing in the deed, if you have to take the neighbor to court or take the situation to court to get it corrected, it's like a much more of a pain of a process, right? There's a cost involved, there's time involved. And so we had this house under contract. It sold. We're ready to close. Everything's already been done. except this easement is missing from the deed and we need it to be on the deed in order to close. And so I showed up. I knew this guy worked like a weird shift and I showed up at his house. It's like dark, 4:30 in the morning to get to him to get this, to be able to get this easement taken care of. Looking back, I feel like that was dangerous. I don't know that I would say I would or wouldn't do it again, but that is one of the craziest things I've done. I probably would do it again. I don't know. I felt like safe, I think, because I had talked to him and like I'd been in the house a bunch of times, but still, maybe, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't do that today. I've also dealt with my more than fair share, maybe, of unethical people, including clients or past clients, potential clients. And something that I've come to the conclusion for myself and just how I operate business is in dealing with people that are, what did they say, the greatest generation, the generation above baby boomers. I feel like those people, every time I've come across them, like whatever they tell me, they will do. Like their word is true, their word is their bond. But when it comes to like baby boomers, Gen Z, Gen X, um, millennials, all X, Y, Z, and A's coming up next. No offense. I don't think they'll be any better. I think individuals certainly are, but in terms of like generationally, the ones in the older generation, just there's something about it where they were taught like what they say they'll do and what they, that their word is just, they're bound to that. And so I'm just really much more careful. And it's like, I believe when things happen, like when contracts are signed, and my husband went through this for a number of years. Like, I think over 15 years, he would have people tell him they were going to sign a contract with him, and he'd always believe them. And he'd, kind of get that feeling like, oh, I got a contract signed and celebrate. Not really celebrate, but like the feeling like, okay, it's a done deal or I have this in the works. And really, you don't have anything until you have anything. And houses aren't sold until they're close. I had a house that it took the fourth time selling it to get it to closing table. And twice she got to keep the earnest money of the buyer because they just backed out for no reason. And so, a deal's not done until it's closed. A listing's not taken until it's completely signed. And even then, it still has to be sold and closed. So I just have learned I don't count things until they're actually processed and everything is done correctly. And what that has done for me as a person is I feel like I've seen to me, it's like an ugly human flaw or characteristic to do that. And so for me personally, it's made me care more about doing what I say. And like, if I say I'm going to sign a contract or if I say I agree to something, then I care about doing that. So I feel like I believe real estate is sales. And I think a lot of salespeople um, in this day and age aren't honest, honest as they should be. And so I think I care a lot about honesty and a lot about doing what I say I'm going to do. And so just seeing that other people fail at doing that has made me care much more about the follow through on that and not being that way. So I do think for me, it's been a positive thing. And I do try to be really careful about what I agree to do and to take into account, like, what are my life constraints during this time. All right. That same agent that we had a couple deals go sour, not because of us, just because of the circumstances of clients and everything we were dealing with. So one was those people moving in when they weren't supposed to, and everything worked out well, thank God, on that. Another time, we had another sale together, and my sellers were just overwhelmed. They owned a business. They had 3 kids. Their kids were busy. They had a big house full of stuff, and they just didn't get on it with like moving. I just kept, I was talking to them throughout the whole process, like we're pending, and like they just weren't really doing much until the last minute. And so the day of closing, the buyers had like their whole church group coming in and family, like moving them in. They were like painting rooms and hanging pictures and in one day, they're like completely moved in. And I mean, like pictures hung, like everything in its place, like perfect. Meanwhile, my sellers aren't put the house. So this like a crew of people for the buyers are coming in. The sellers are still trying to get stuff out. And so their crew just starts putting stuff in the yard that the sellers can get in. And I come by to like check on them and help them. And it's like 7 at night on a Friday night. And they're like, yeah, can you just take all these clothes, like donate them, do whatever you want to with them. So I filled my trunk up with stuff just to help them out. I don't volunteer moving for other people, but in the case of an emergency, I think every client I've ever had would allow me to help them move if I was willing. And it's just a boundary that like I can't, and I can't hurt my back either. But in that instance, I would certainly help out. I've had other circumstances like that too, where someone didn't move out in time and he's still moving out like days later. This is a nightmare situation and shouldn't happen. But luckily, like the people on both sides were so kind, and they were just kind, and they're painting their new house, and it's been their new house for a few days. And the seller's like, don't mind me, you won't be in my way. It's like, it's their house, you're in their way. But they were super sweet about it. Thank goodness. A closing attorney told me this years ago, there's a certain percentage of the population that are crazy. I think it's increasing these days, but there's a certain percentage, right? And sometimes it's not obvious until the stress of moving and selling hits, right? Or buying and selling. And I think sometimes people aren't even crazy, but just like the stress of everything going on, like puts them in crazy moments. And so I really do have seen people's crazy come out. And I try to be really forgiving and like understanding. I really am, right? Because as a mom and having pregnancies and everything, like I think my crazy has come out in some of my pregnancies before. So I get it. Probably moving too, but it definitely has come out. I can think of an instance for sure during pregnancy where my crazy came out. Another person, this is like a warning to sellers. So someone I know owned a property and they were closing in 2 days, but there was a holiday between the 2 days. And so they canceled their insurance, their property insurance, like 2 days before the closing, which I think that should be a call that you make after you are at the closing table. Like, don't even call and say, on this day, cancel it. Because what if something came up and you forgot? Like, I would highly recommend waiting until after you've signed and gotten your check and then cancel your property insurance. But this person didn't do that, unfortunately. And the property caught on fire and like completely burned. And so they were closing in 2 days. It's like they didn't even know until the morning of the closing. It burned the night before. And so they lost just a ton of money because now they have a lot and not this property they were selling. And it was a business, it wasn't a home, but still it had value in the building as well. And from what I understand, it was a terrible fire. The other thing is, like, I'm always trying to give the best service to clients and making people happy, right? And then there's been times where people forget, like from the time you make an agreement until the time you get to closing table, there's 30 to 45 days. And what I found is people will actually forget what they agreed to. And so this actually happened with the same person. So they bought a house, and at the time, like the fridge wasn't included. And then we got to the walkthrough, and or maybe like just before that, right? And they're like, they want the fridge. And so we had to negotiate for the fridge. And I actually personally winded up buying it in that instance. And then a similar thing of years later, I list and sell this house. And it's back then, like full price wasn't as common. Like almost every sale we did, we negotiated. And the market was more of a buyer's market. It was like the market was more like balanced to buyer's market. It was like a long sell period, like 6 months average, 4 to 6 months average or more. And so we sold the house with for full price, but they were going to pay closing costs. So then at the closing table, they had forgotten that they had agreed to pay closing costs, and they were really upset. And it's like not a small sum of money. And I was out of town traveling back. Actually, I was coming back from a real estate conference, and I'm like, I had gotten one of my colleagues to go to the closing for me. And I'm like, the airplane's like taking off. Like I'm texting with them and with him, and like the airplane's taking off. And um, they were upset and mad. And like, that's what they had agreed to. And I like found where our conversation was before and sent a screenshot of it. But yeah, people can forget and then blame you because it's like, I get it. It's my fault. And so that's one horrible thing about dramatic thing, bad thing, right? About this job. But it's been my career for 15 years. I still love it. And so many times I hear about people saying, oh, I'd love to get into real estate. I love to look at beautiful houses all day. And a coach said before, it's the people that say that typically don't do well because it's a sales job. It's like you have to be willing to you have super high highs, but there's super low lows too. And you really can get beat up. You can work so hard and not make any money. There's always, when the market's good, all these people get into the market and then the market starts to turn and all these people get out of the market. It happens in all the real estate cycles. It's always happened. And it can be fun. It can look glamorous. It's fun to dress up. I think any job where you can dress nice, I do enjoy that. I do enjoy looking presentable. I think it shows a sign of respect. I think it's something we're missing. And I think even in real estate, like it's starting to shift and I don't agree with it. I feel like um, me dressing up is to show courtesy and respect to others. And it's not about me and it's not about my comfort. It's about like, I'm a professional. I'm here to do a job for you and to help you and to walk you through things. And I want to show you respect by the way I am presenting myself. Another fun thing that happened, I guess fun thing, interesting thing, um, I had sold a house and it was lease purchase. So it was where the seller he was upside down on it. He had been through a divorce and like some of the debt and things got wrapped up with this house in order to just take it all himself and make things cleaner. And so he was needing a little bit more for it than what the market would bear. And so we lease purchased it to someone. And so they were making payments until they could get the loan and close on it. They happened to win the lottery in the meantime. So they actually won $1 million. And the whole story about lottery winners that happened. So $1 million isn't huge. Like it's a wonderful thing to happen. It's a good amount of money, but it won't set you for life, right? But they did go ahead and purchase that house early, and then they purchased another house, and then some dramatic things happened in their life. They got divorced, and the second house that was purchased, they split the houses. So one got one got the other and one of the houses burned mysteriously. And a few days before it burned, we actually talked about having a listing appointment together. And so that person was ready to sell that house and it burned to the ground. There was another house, not similar situation, but the guy had a business. He'd done really well. And then, the recession happened and things turned around. And so he had this big house. It was extremely custom and it was a bit overpriced. It was in a weird area for like this monstrosity of a house. And their decorations were like very specific. So I think also that turned people off. But he tried for years to sell it. I was one of the many realtors that had it listed at one point, and it also mysteriously burned. And I heard rumors about that. And I think there may have even been some court cases about that. But I did get interviewed by someone from the insurance company on that situation. Yeah, those are my crazy, traumatic, scary, funny stories as a realtor. I hope you enjoyed this. I know I believe every industry has funny, crazy stories. I know I did hair for 5 years prior and on top of doing real estate. And so I had a few crazy stories from that. Some so bad I couldn't tell. There's some in real estate that are so bad, I don't think I'd want to tell them either. But I hope you enjoyed this. If you need a seller's guidebook, if you're looking to buy, please feel free to reach out to me. Thanks for your time. Hope you enjoyed today. Have a great day. Bye.